Question 1. Consider a scenario where a student, Alira, has diligently prepared for the Albanian University entrance exam. On the morning of the exam, she receives news of a serious family emergency requiring her immediate attention and causing significant emotional distress, potentially impairing her ability to concentrate and perform optimally. Alira is aware that the exam is a critical gateway to her desired university program. What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct course of action for Alira in this situation? Option A. Alira should discreetly inform her assigned invigilator about her family emergency and ask if she can take a short break during the exam to compose herself. Option B. Alira should proceed with the exam, hoping to perform adequately despite her distress, and plan to appeal for a re-examination later if her performance is significantly affected. Option C. Lyra should immediately contact the examination administration to report her situation and inquire about the possibility of a formal deferral or rescheduling of her exam, providing any necessary documentation for her family emergency. Option D. Alira should attempt the exam to the best of her ability and then discuss her situation with her parents, who might then contact the university on her behalf to explain the circumstances. The correct answer is C. Alira should immediately contact the examination administration to report her situation and inquire about the possibility of a formal deferral or rescheduling of her exam, providing any necessary documentation for her family emergency. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's personal circumstances and the established academic integrity policies of the Albanian University entrance exam. The pressure to succeed, coupled with a genuine personal hardship, creates an ethical dilemma requiring careful judgment to balance compassion with fairness and adherence to regulations. The correct approach involves a transparent and ethical communication with the examination authorities, seeking an official deferral or alternative arrangement based on documented hardship. This aligns with the principles of fairness and integrity that underpin university entrance examinations. Specifically, it respects the established procedures for managing unforeseen circumstances, ensuring that all candidates are assessed under equitable conditions. The regulatory framework for the Albanian University entrance exam, while not explicitly detailed here, would typically prioritize standardized testing conditions and provide mechanisms for addressing exceptional cases through official channels. This approach upholds the integrity of the examination process by ensuring that any accommodations are granted through a formal, documented, and fair procedure, preventing potential biases or unfair advantages. An incorrect approach would be to attempt to gain an unfair advantage by withholding information or misrepresenting the situation. For instance, proceeding with the exam while experiencing severe distress and then seeking a retrospective adjustment based on a claim of incapacitation would undermine the principle of equal opportunity for all candidates. This fails to adhere to the spirit of the regulations, which expect candidates to be in a fit state to undertake the examination. Another incorrect approach would be to seek assistance from a proctor or invigilator outside of the official channels for reporting difficulties. This could compromise the security and impartiality of the examination process and would likely be a violation of examination conduct rules. Professionals facing similar situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes transparency, adherence to established procedures, and ethical conduct. This involves 1. Identifying the core ethical conflict, 2. Consulting relevant regulations and guidelines for the specific examination, 3. Seeking official guidance from the examination board or relevant administrative body regarding the appropriate course of action for the documented hardship. 4. Acting with integrity and honesty throughout the process. Question 2. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a proposed new construction project on university grounds offers significant immediate financial advantages through increased rental income from commercial spaces. However, it also involves the removal of a small, established green area that serves as a local biodiversity hotspot and a recreational space for the surrounding community. Considering the principles of sustainable development and environmental protection as enshrined in Albanian legislation, which approach best aligns with the university's responsibilities? Option A. Proceed with the construction project, as the financial benefits clearly outweigh the quantifiable costs, and any environmental impact can be mitigated through future landscaping efforts. Option B. Prioritize the financial gains by proceeding with the project immediately, assuming that any environmental concerns are secondary to the university's need for increased revenue. Option C. Postpone the project indefinitely due to the potential for negative environmental impact, without exploring any potential mitigation or alternative solutions. Option D. Conduct a thorough environmental impact assessment. Engage in public consultations with local communities and environmental experts, and explore alternative designs or locations that minimize ecological disruption and maximize community benefit, even if it delays or slightly increases the project's initial cost. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the construction project, as the financial benefits clearly outweigh the quantifiable costs, and any environmental impact can be mitigated through future landscaping efforts. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a proposed project against potential long-term environmental and social impacts, which are often harder to quantify, but are crucial considerations under Albanian law and ethical professional conduct. The decision-maker must navigate the complexities of assessing intangible benefits and risks, ensuring compliance with environmental protection regulations and the principles of sustainable development, which are integral to the Albanian legal framework governing university operations and public projects. Careful judgment is required to avoid prioritizing short-term gains over long-term societal well-being and legal obligations. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment that goes beyond purely financial metrics. It necessitates integrating qualitative factors such as environmental impact assessments, community consultation, and adherence to the principles of sustainable development as mandated by Albanian environmental legislation and university governance guidelines. This approach ensures that all relevant stakeholders' interests are considered and that the decision aligns with the university's commitment to social responsibility and legal compliance, fostering long-term value and mitigating potential future liabilities. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on maximizing immediate financial returns without adequately considering the environmental and social costs fails to comply with the precautionary principle embedded in Albanian environmental law. This principle requires proactive measures to prevent environmental damage, even in the absence of full scientific certainty. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes expediency over thorough due diligence, such as bypassing mandatory environmental impact assessments or public consultations, directly violates procedural requirements stipulated by Albanian administrative law and environmental protection acts. Such failures can lead to legal challenges, reputational damage, and ultimately the abandonment or significant modification of the project, negating any perceived short-term benefits. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the legal and ethical landscape. This involves identifying all applicable regulations, e.g., environmental protection laws, university statutes, stakeholder groups, and potential impacts, both positive and negative, tangible and intangible. The process should then involve gathering comprehensive data, including expert opinions and community feedback, to inform a holistic evaluation. Finally, decisions should be made based on a balanced consideration of all factors, prioritizing long-term sustainability and legal compliance, even when faced with pressure for immediate financial gains. Question 3. The investigation demonstrates that a significant potential donor has offered a substantial financial contribution to the university, with the implicit understanding that this contribution could lead to preferential consideration for their child's admission to a highly competitive program. The university's admissions committee is aware of this offer, considering the regulatory framework and guidelines for Albanian university entrance exams. Which of the following approaches best upholds the principles of fairness and integrity in the admissions process? Option A. The admissions committee should accept the donation and subtly ensure the donor's child receives favorable consideration during the admission process, justifying it as a gesture of goodwill for the significant contribution. Option B. The admissions committee should reject the donation outright due to the potential for conflict of interest, without further discussion or exploration of alternative arrangements. Option C. The admissions committee should formally acknowledge the donation offer, but clearly communicate to the donor that all admission decisions are made solely on merit according to established criteria, and that no preferential treatment will be given based on financial contributions. They should then proceed with the admission process independently. Option D. The admissions committee should accept the donation and proceed with the admission process as usual, without explicitly mentioning the donation to the admissions committee members involved in the child's evaluation, hoping the connection remains unknown. The correct answer is C. The admissions committee should formally acknowledge the donation offer but clearly communicate to the donor that all admission decisions are made solely on merit according to established criteria, and that no preferential treatment will be given based on financial contributions. They should then proceed with the admission process independently. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for funding and the ethical obligation to ensure the integrity of the admission process. The decision-maker must navigate the potential for undue influence and maintain public trust in the fairness of university admissions, which is paramount for the institution's reputation and the value of its degrees. Careful judgment is required to balance stakeholder interests while upholding regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves prioritizing transparency and adherence to established admission criteria, even if it means foregoing a potentially lucrative donation. This aligns with the principles of academic integrity and fair competition, which are implicitly or explicitly supported by the regulatory framework governing university admissions in Albania. The law likely mandates impartial evaluation of candidates and prohibits any form of preferential treatment based on financial contributions. Upholding these principles ensures that admission is based on merit, fostering a credible and equitable educational environment. An incorrect approach that involves accepting the donation with the understanding that it might influence admission decisions would constitute a serious breach of ethical conduct and potentially violate Albanian regulations concerning university admissions and anti-corruption. This approach undermines the meritocratic basis of education and creates an unfair advantage for certain candidates, eroding trust in the institution. Another incorrect approach, accepting the donation but attempting to conceal its connection to admissions, would be dishonest and deceptive. This not only violates ethical principles of integrity and transparency, but also exposes the university to legal repercussions if discovered, as it implies a hidden agenda and manipulation of the admission process. A further incorrect approach, rejecting the donation outright without exploring any legitimate avenues for its acceptance that do not compromise admission integrity, might be professionally suboptimal. While it avoids the direct conflict, it misses an opportunity for beneficial funding if the donor's intentions can be clarified and managed ethically, potentially through separate, non-admission-related channels. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant Albanian laws and university regulations governing admissions and donations. A structured approach would include identifying all stakeholders and their interests, assessing the potential ethical and legal implications of each course of action, consulting with relevant university bodies, e.g., ethics committee, legal counsel, and prioritizing actions that uphold academic integrity, fairness, and transparency above all else. Question 4. The analysis reveals that a prominent alumnus has offered a substantial donation to the university, earmarked for the construction of a new faculty building. However, preliminary investigations suggest that the alumnus's recent business ventures have faced significant public criticism regarding their environmental impact and labor practices. Considering the university's commitment to ethical conduct and its role in shaping future professionals, what is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Accept the donation immediately to secure the much-needed funding for the new building, as the university's financial needs are pressing. Option B. Accept the donation but insist that the funds be used for a less visible project to minimize potential public scrutiny. Option C. Accept the donation after conducting a thorough due diligence process to assess the reputational risks and ensure the donor's activities do not fundamentally contradict the university's core values, while also exploring ways to mitigate any identified concerns. Option D. Reject the donation outright due to the public criticism surrounding the alumnus's business practices, without further investigation. The correct answer is C. Accept the donation after conducting a thorough due diligence process to assess the reputational risks and ensure the donor's activities do not fundamentally contradict the university's core values, while also exploring ways to mitigate any identified concerns. Explanation: This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate financial needs and the long-term academic integrity and reputation. The decision-maker must navigate the ethical imperative to uphold academic standards against the pressure to secure funding, which could impact the university's standing and the value of its degrees. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any partnership aligns with the university's mission and does not compromise its core values. The correct approach involves a thorough due diligence process that prioritizes the alignment of the potential donor's values and activities with the university's mission and ethical guidelines. This includes scrutinizing the source of funds and assessing any potential reputational risks or conflicts of interest. This approach is justified by the Albanian university entrance exam's implicit emphasis on academic integrity and the responsible stewardship of educational institutions. Universities have a duty to maintain public trust and ensure that their operations are not tainted by association with unethical or harmful practices, which is a fundamental ethical consideration in higher education governance. An incorrect approach would be to accept the donation without adequate scrutiny, solely based on the financial benefit. This fails to uphold the university's ethical obligations and could lead to reputational damage, undermining public confidence, and potentially impacting future funding and student enrollment. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize the donor's wishes regarding the use of funds without considering the broader academic implications or potential conflicts with existing university policies or research ethics. This demonstrates a lack of independent judgment and a failure to protect the university's academic freedom and integrity. A third incorrect approach would be to dismiss the donation outright due to minor concerns, without exploring potential mitigation strategies or seeking clarification, which could be seen as an overly rigid stance that hinders potentially beneficial collaborations if the concerns are addressable. Professionals in university administration should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying all relevant stakeholders and their interests. This is followed by a comprehensive assessment of the ethical implications, potential risks, and alignment with institutional values and regulations. Transparency and consultation with relevant committees or governing bodies are crucial steps. Finally, the decision should be based on a balanced consideration of all factors, prioritizing the long-term health and integrity of the institution over short-term gains. Question 5. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a proposed industrial development offers significant short-term economic advantages for the region, including job creation and increased tax revenue. However, preliminary environmental reports indicate potential risks to local water sources and biodiversity. Considering the Albanian legal framework for environmental protection and the ethical responsibilities of businesses towards the community and environment, which approach best balances these competing interests? Option A. Conduct a thorough environmental impact assessment. Engage in public consultation with local communities and environmental experts, and integrate mitigation strategies and long-term sustainability measures into the project plan before making a final decision. Option B. Halt the project immediately due to the potential environmental risks, prioritizing environmental preservation above all economic considerations, even if it means foregoing potential regional development. Option C. Accept the project based on the initial cost-benefit analysis, assuming that technological advancements will resolve any future environmental problems, and rely on lobbying efforts to manage regulatory scrutiny. Option D. Proceed with the development, focusing solely on the economic benefits and addressing any environmental issues only if they become legally mandated problems. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the development, focusing solely on the economic benefits and addressing any environmental issues only if they become legally mandated problems. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a proposed project against its long-term environmental and social impacts, which are often harder to quantify but are crucial for sustainable development and public well-being. The decision-maker must navigate potential conflicts of interest and ensure adherence to Albanian environmental protection laws and ethical considerations regarding corporate social responsibility. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment that goes beyond purely financial metrics. It requires integrating qualitative factors such as environmental impact assessments, community consultation, and long-term sustainability goals into the decision-making process. This aligns with the principles of responsible investment and the spirit of Albanian environmental legislation, which aims to protect natural resources and public health for present and future generations. Ethical considerations also demand that potential negative externalities are not ignored for short-term gain. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the immediate cost-benefit analysis, ignoring environmental and social factors, fails to comply with Albanian environmental regulations. These laws often mandate impact assessments and public consultation for projects that could affect the environment. Furthermore, such an approach is ethically unsound, as it prioritizes profit over the well-being of the community and the environment, potentially leading to long-term damage and reputational harm. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes stakeholder pressure without independent verification of environmental and social impacts is also professionally flawed. While stakeholder engagement is important, decisions must be based on objective data and regulatory compliance, not solely on appeasing vocal groups without due diligence. This can lead to suboptimal or even harmful decisions if the pressure group's concerns are not fully or accurately understood in the context of broader legal and ethical obligations. A professional decision-making process in such a situation should involve 1. Identifying all relevant stakeholders and their interests. 2. Gathering comprehensive data, including financial, environmental, and social impact assessments, in line with Albanian legal requirements. 3. Consulting with relevant experts and regulatory bodies. 4. Evaluating options against legal mandates, ethical principles, and long-term sustainability objectives. 5. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale behind the final choice. Question 6. To address the challenge of a visibly distressed candidate during the Albanian university entrance exam who appears to be struggling significantly with a question, what is the most appropriate course of action for an invigilator to take, ensuring adherence to exam regulations and maintaining fairness for all participants? Option A. Discreetly offer the candidate a brief, regulated break to compose themselves, if permitted by specific exam protocols for managing candidate distress. Option B. Ignore the candidate's distress and continue with the examination as normal. Option C. Provide the candidate with a subtle hint or clarification on the question they are struggling with. Option D. Allow the candidate to consult their personal notes or study materials for assistance. The correct answer is A. Discreetly offer the candidate a brief, regulated break to compose themselves, if permitted by specific exam protocols for managing candidate distress. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate needs of a student with the established academic integrity policies of the Albanian university entrance exam. The pressure to assist a struggling student, especially when faced with their distress, can create an ethical dilemma. However, maintaining the fairness and validity of the examination process is paramount. The decision-making process must prioritize adherence to the official regulations governing the exam to ensure equal opportunity for all candidates and the credibility of the assessment. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the examination rules, which typically prohibit any form of external assistance or communication during the test. This approach is justified by the regulatory framework of the Albanian university entrance exam, which is designed to assess individual knowledge and abilities fairly. Providing unauthorized help would violate these regulations, compromise the integrity of the exam, and potentially lead to unfair advantages for some students over others. It also undermines the purpose of the exam as a standardized measure of academic preparedness. An incorrect approach would be to offer the student direct assistance, such as providing answers or hints. This action directly contravenes the examination regulations and constitutes academic misconduct. It undermines the principle of individual assessment and fairness, as it allows a student to achieve a score that does not reflect their own knowledge. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's distress and offer no support whatsoever, even within the permitted boundaries. While adhering to rules is crucial, a professional response should also acknowledge the human element. However, in the context of a high-stakes entrance exam, the primary ethical obligation is to uphold the integrity of the examination process. The most appropriate action, if permitted by the exam's specific guidelines, might involve discreetly informing a proctor or supervisor about the student's distress, allowing them to handle the situation according to established procedures, which could include offering a brief, regulated break if deemed appropriate by the exam authorities. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the governing regulations. They must then assess the potential consequences of each possible action, considering both the immediate impact on the student and the broader implications for the integrity of the examination. Prioritizing adherence to established rules while remaining mindful of ethical considerations is key to making sound professional judgments. Question 7. The review process indicates a strong suspicion of plagiarism in a submitted essay by a first-year student. The professor is concerned about the integrity of the student's work and the potential impact on academic standards. According to the regulatory framework governing Albanian university entrance exams and subsequent academic progression, what is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the professor? Option A. Immediately assign a failing grade for the essay and inform the student of the plagiarism accusation. Option B. Discuss the suspicion with other faculty members to gauge their opinion before taking any action. Option C. Ignore the suspicion if there is no irrefutable, direct evidence of plagiarism. Option D. Initiate a formal investigation process as per the university's academic integrity policy, ensuring the student is notified and given an opportunity to respond. The correct answer is A. Immediately assign a failing grade for the essay and inform the student of the plagiarism accusation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the immediate need to address a potential academic integrity issue and the requirement to follow established university procedures and respect the rights of the student. A hasty or biased approach could lead to unfair accusations, damage the student's academic record, and undermine the university's reputation for fairness. Careful judgment is required to balance the urgency of the situation with due process. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation, adhering strictly to the university's academic integrity policy. This policy, as mandated by the Ministry of Education and Science of Albania, outlines the specific steps for handling suspected plagiarism, including notifying the student, providing them with an opportunity to respond, and ensuring that any disciplinary action is proportionate and based on clear evidence. This approach upholds the principles of natural justice and due process, ensuring that the student's rights are protected while maintaining academic standards. An incorrect approach of immediately failing the student without investigation violates the principle of presumption of innocence and the right to a fair hearing, which are fundamental to Albanian educational law and university regulations. This bypasses the established procedural safeguards designed to prevent wrongful accusations and disciplinary actions. Another incorrect approach of ignoring the potential plagiarism due to a lack of definitive proof, despite strong suspicion, fails to uphold the university's responsibility to maintain academic integrity. This inaction could set a precedent for academic dishonesty and devalue the qualifications awarded by the institution. A further incorrect approach of consulting with other faculty members informally for a quick decision, without following the formal investigation protocol, breaches confidentiality and risks introducing bias into the decision-making process. It also circumvents the established channels for evidence gathering and review, potentially leading to an unfair outcome. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and procedures. This involves 1. Recognizing the potential issue and the need for investigation. 2. Consulting the relevant university policy on academic integrity. 3. Initiating the formal investigation process as outlined in the policy, ensuring all parties are informed and have an opportunity to be heard. 4. Gathering and evaluating evidence impartially. 5. Making a decision based on the evidence and policy, with appropriate recourse for appeal. Question 8. What factors determine the overall fairness and academic validity of the Albanian university entrance exam, as outlined by the relevant national regulations and educational guidelines? Option A. The number of examination centers available across the country and the efficiency of the logistical distribution of examination materials. Option B. The alignment of examination content with the secondary school curriculum, the impartiality of question development, and the transparency of the examination administration process. Option C. The cost-effectiveness of producing examination papers and the speed at which results are published. Option D. The perceived difficulty of the examination questions as reported by a majority of student feedback surveys. The correct answer is B. The alignment of examination content with the secondary school curriculum, the impartiality of question development, and the transparency of the examination administration process. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a candidate to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles that underpin the Albanian university entrance exam system, specifically concerning the impact of external factors on its integrity and fairness. The challenge lies in identifying which elements are most crucial for ensuring the exam's validity and equitable administration, as stipulated by the regulatory framework governing higher education admissions in Albania. The correct approach involves recognizing that the exam's credibility is directly tied to the fairness of its administration and the relevance of its content to the intended academic pathways. This means considering how external influences might compromise these aspects. For instance, ensuring that the examination questions are developed by qualified professionals, are free from bias, and accurately reflect the curriculum taught in secondary education is paramount. Furthermore, the process of administering the exam must be transparent and secure to prevent any form of cheating or unfair advantage. Adherence to the Ministry of Education and Science's guidelines and the specific regulations set by the participating universities is essential for maintaining the exam's legitimacy. An incorrect approach would be to focus solely on the logistical aspects of exam delivery, such as the number of examination centers or the availability of stationery. While important for smooth operation, these factors do not directly address the core issues of fairness and academic validity. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize the subjective opinions of students or parents regarding the difficulty of the exam, without a systematic, evidence-based assessment of its alignment with educational standards. This could lead to arbitrary changes that undermine the exam's purpose. Focusing on the cost of examination materials without considering their quality or security would also be a flawed approach, as it prioritizes economy over integrity. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a systematic evaluation of potential impacts on the exam's fairness, validity, and adherence to regulatory requirements. This includes consulting relevant legal frameworks, educational standards, and expert opinions. A balanced consideration of all factors, with a clear prioritization of integrity and academic rigor, is crucial for making sound judgments. Question 9. The audit findings indicate potential procedural irregularities in the administration of the recent Albanian university entrance exam, specifically concerning the secure handling of examination materials in one regional center. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action according to the regulatory framework governing Albanian university entrance exams? Option A. Disregard the findings as minor procedural deviations that are unlikely to have impacted the overall exam integrity and proceed with the standard release of results. Option B. Initiate a confidential internal investigation into the reported irregularities, gather all relevant evidence, and prepare a comprehensive report for the Ministry of Education and Science before any public communication. Option C. Publicly acknowledge that an audit has been conducted and that potential issues are being reviewed, without specifying the nature or location of the findings, while simultaneously launching a targeted investigation. Option D. Immediately disclose the full audit findings to the public and all applicants, detailing the specific nature of the irregularities and the affected regional center, while initiating an immediate internal investigation. The correct answer is D. Immediately disclose the full audit findings to the public and all applicants, detailing the specific nature of the irregularities and the affected regional center, while initiating an immediate internal investigation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the need for transparency and the potential for reputational damage or competitive disadvantage. The university entrance exam regulations in Albania are designed to ensure fairness, integrity, and equal opportunity for all applicants. Therefore, any action taken must strictly adhere to these principles and the specific guidelines governing the examination process. The challenge lies in balancing the disclosure of audit findings with the protection of sensitive information and the maintenance of public trust in the examination system. The correct approach involves a systematic and transparent communication process that prioritizes the integrity of the exam and the rights of the applicants, while also respecting the need for due diligence and corrective action. This approach aligns with the Albanian University entrance exam regulations by ensuring that any identified irregularities are addressed promptly and fairly, with appropriate measures taken to rectify them and prevent recurrence. Transparency in communication, even when dealing with negative findings, is crucial for maintaining the credibility of the examination process. This includes informing relevant stakeholders, such as the Ministry of Education and Science, and potentially the public, in a manner that is factual, objective, and constructive. The focus should be on the process of improvement and ensuring the fairness of future examinations. An incorrect approach would be to suppress or delay the disclosure of audit findings. This failure directly contravenes the spirit and letter of the Albanian University entrance exam regulations, which mandate accountability and continuous improvement of the examination system. Hiding or downplaying significant audit findings erodes public trust and undermines the fairness of the process, potentially leading to legal challenges and a loss of confidence in the educational institutions. Another incorrect approach is to disclose the findings without a clear plan for remediation or investigation. This can create unnecessary panic and speculation among applicants and the public, without offering concrete solutions. The regulations imply a proactive and responsible handling of issues, which includes not just identifying problems, but also implementing corrective actions. A third incorrect approach is to disclose findings in a way that unfairly targets or implicates specific individuals or groups without proper investigation and due process. The Albanian regulations emphasize fairness and impartiality. Any disclosure must be based on objective evidence and follow established procedures for investigation and resolution, protecting the rights of all parties involved. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the Albanian University entrance exam regulations, including any specific directives on audit reporting and communication. It requires an assessment of the nature and severity of the audit findings, consultation with legal counsel and relevant university authorities, and the development of a communication strategy that is both transparent and responsible. The priority must always be to uphold the integrity and fairness of the examination process, as mandated by the governing regulations. Question 10. Compliance review shows that during a supervised Albanian University entrance exam session, a fellow candidate discreetly asks for help with a specific question, stating they are completely stuck. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure adherence to the exam's regulatory framework? Option A. Suggest the candidate quickly look up the answer in their permitted reference materials. Option B. Immediately report the candidate to the exam proctor without any further interaction. Option C. Discreetly whisper the correct answer to the candidate. Option D. Politely inform the candidate that you cannot provide any assistance or answers, as it would violate the exam rules. The correct answer is D. Politely inform the candidate that you cannot provide any assistance or answers, as it would violate the exam rules. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate potential conflicts of interest and ensure adherence to the specific academic integrity standards mandated by the Albanian University entrance exam regulations. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the desire to assist a peer with the absolute requirement to uphold the fairness and validity of the examination process. Careful judgment is needed to distinguish between legitimate academic support and actions that could compromise the integrity of the exam. The correct approach involves recognizing the limitations imposed by the exam's regulatory framework. This approach prioritizes the integrity of the examination process above all else, aligning with the fundamental principles of academic fairness and the specific rules governing the Albanian University entrance exam. The regulatory framework for such exams typically emphasizes individual merit and prohibits any form of collusion or unauthorized assistance. Therefore, lightly declining to provide answers or specific guidance that could be construed as cheating is the only ethically and regulatorily sound course of action. This upholds the principle that each candidate must demonstrate their own knowledge and understanding. An incorrect approach that involves providing specific answers or hints directly violates the core principles of academic integrity and the explicit rules of the Albanian University entrance exam. This action constitutes academic misconduct, undermining the fairness of the assessment for all candidates and potentially leading to severe penalties for both the individual providing assistance and the recipient. Another incorrect approach, such as suggesting the peer consult specific study materials during the exam, also fails to meet regulatory requirements. While seemingly less direct than providing answers, it still constitutes unauthorized assistance and can be interpreted as an attempt to circumvent the exam's controlled environment. The regulations for university entrance exams are designed to ensure a standardized and equitable testing experience, and any deviation from this is unacceptable. A further incorrect approach, such as reporting the peer's request to exam proctors without first attempting to de-escalate or clarify the situation, might be seen as overly punitive and lacking in professional discretion, though it would ultimately uphold exam integrity. However, the primary ethical and regulatory imperative is to avoid engaging in or facilitating academic dishonesty. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the exam's rules, an assessment of the potential impact of any action on exam integrity, and a commitment to upholding ethical standards. When faced with a request that could compromise academic honesty, the immediate priority is to refuse the request in a manner that is firm yet professional, without engaging in any form of academic misconduct. Question 11. Compliance review shows that during the Albanian university entrance exam, a candidate appears visibly distressed and is struggling with a particular question, looking towards a proctor for help. What is the most appropriate course of action for the proctor to take, strictly adhering to the regulations of the Albanian university entrance exam? Option A. Approach the candidate and quietly offer a hint to help them understand the question better. Option B. Inform the candidate that they should focus on the questions they can answer and that assistance cannot be provided during the exam. Option C. Discreetly offer a reassuring nod and a brief, encouraging smile to the candidate, indicating that they should continue to try their best. Option D. Signal to the candidate that they should skip the question and move on to the next one. Correct answer is C. Discreetly offer a reassuring nod and a brief, encouraging smile to the candidate, indicating that they should continue to try their best. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate the ethical and regulatory landscape of academic integrity within the specific context of the Albanian university entrance exam framework. Core difficulty lies in balancing the need to assist a student with the absolute imperative to uphold the fairness and validity of the examination process. Misjudging this balance can lead to severe consequences, including compromising the integrity of the exam, potentially disadvantaging other candidates, and facing disciplinary action. The correct approach involves a strict adherence to the established rules and guidelines of the Albanian university entrance exam, prioritizing the integrity of the examination above all else. This means recognizing that providing any form of unauthorized assistance, even with good intentions, constitutes a violation of the exam's regulatory framework. The justification for this approach is rooted in the fundamental principles of fairness, equality, and meritocracy that underpin any standardized entrance examination. The regulations for the Albanian university entrance exam are designed to ensure that all candidates are assessed on their own knowledge and abilities, creating a level playing field. Any deviation from these rules undermines this principle and compromises the validity of the results. An incorrect approach would be to offer any form of direct or indirect assistance to the student. This could manifest as providing hints, clarifying questions in a way that suggests answers, or even offering encouragement that could be interpreted as guidance. Such actions, regardless of the perceived intent, directly contravene the regulations of the Albanian university entrance exam, which strictly prohibit any form of communication or assistance between candidates, or between candidates and external parties during the examination. Ethical failure lies in compromising the impartiality of the exam and potentially giving one candidate an unfair advantage. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's distress and offer no support whatsoever, even in a way that respects the exam's integrity. While this might seem to uphold the rules, it fails to address the human element and the potential for genuine anxiety, which could be managed through appropriate, non-violating channels after the exam. The ethical failure here is a lack of professional empathy and a missed opportunity to guide the student towards appropriate post-exam support mechanisms. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant regulations and ethical codes. When faced with a situation that could compromise academic integrity, The professional must first identify the specific rules that apply. Then they must assess the potential impact of any action on the fairness and validity of the examination. The priority should always be to uphold the integrity of the process. If there is any doubt about whether an action would violate regulations, the safest and most ethical course is to refrain from that action and seek clarification from appropriate authorities if necessary. In this context, the professional must recognize the boundaries of their role and the limitations imposed by the exam strictures. Question 12. Compliance review shows that during a recent Albanian university entrance exam, an invigilator observed a candidate repeatedly looking at their watch and then making a small, almost imperceptible gesture with their hand towards another candidate. The invigilator is unsure if this was a deliberate attempt at communication or simply a nervous habit. What is the most appropriate course of action for the invigilator in this situation? Strictly adhering to the regulations governing the Albanian university entrance exam. Option A. Approach the candidate discreetly and ask them if they are experiencing any difficulties or if they are aware of their actions. Option B. Make a note to speak with the candidate after the exam to discuss their behavior and ensure it does not happen again. Option C. Ignore the behavior, assuming it was an innocent gesture or a nervous tic, to avoid disrupting the examination environment. Option D. Document the observed behavior, including the time and specific actions, and report it to the examination supervisors for further investigation. The correct answer is D. Document the observed behavior, including the time and specific actions, and report it to the examination supervisors for further investigation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a nuanced understanding of the Albanian university entrance exam regulations concerning the ethical conduct of examination invigilators. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to maintain exam integrity with the invigilator's duty of care towards candidates, particularly when faced with a situation that could be interpreted in multiple ways. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate assistance and academic dishonesty, adhering strictly to the established rules. The correct approach involves the invigilator acting impartially and strictly according to the defined procedures for handling suspected irregularities. This means documenting the observed behavior precisely and reporting it to the examination authorities without making a personal judgment on the candidate's intent or guilt. This approach is correct because it upholds the principle of fairness and due process mandated by the Albanian university entrance exam regulations. By reporting the incident, the invigilator ensures that the appropriate body, equipped to investigate and adjudicate, makes the final decision, thereby preventing personal bias from influencing the outcome and maintaining the credibility of the examination process. An incorrect approach would be for the invigilator to directly question the candidate about their actions or to offer a warning based on their personal interpretation of the situation. This is ethically and regulatorily flawed because it oversteps the invigilator's defined role. The regulations for the Albanian university entrance exam typically empower invigilators to observe and report, not to interrogate or preemptively penalize candidates. Such actions could be seen as intimidating, unfair, and could potentially compromise the investigation by influencing the candidate's subsequent behavior or creating grounds for an appeal. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed behavior, assuming it was unintentional or insignificant. This is a failure to uphold the invigilator's responsibility to ensure a fair and secure examination environment for all candidates. The regulations for the Albanian university entrance exam place a clear onus on invigilators to report any potential breaches of conduct, regardless of perceived intent. Failure to do so undermines the integrity of the exam and can lead to a compromised result for all participants. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the invigilator's mandate as outlined in the Albanian university entrance exam regulations. This includes a commitment to impartiality, meticulous observation, and accurate reporting. When an irregularity is suspected, the invigilator should focus on gathering objective facts and reporting them through the designated channels. They should avoid making assumptions, offering personal opinions, or taking actions that are not explicitly permitted by the examination rules. The ultimate goal is to ensure that the examination process is conducted with the highest standards of integrity and fairness. Question 13. Compliance review shows that a significant number of students preparing for the Albanian university entrance exam are utilizing online forums that offer study guides, which appear to contain verbatim answers to past exam questions, alongside explanations that seem to be generated by artificial intelligence. What is the most appropriate immediate action for the examination board to take to uphold the integrity of the upcoming exam? Option A. Advise all students to avoid using any online resources for exam preparation to prevent any potential accusations of academic misconduct. Option B. Conduct a thorough investigation into the origin of these study guides and identify the individuals responsible for creating and distributing them before taking any further action regarding the exam itself. Option C. Focus solely on enhancing the invigilation process during the exam itself, assuming that any misconduct will be detected by supervisors on the day. Option D. Issue a public statement clarifying the exam's strict policy against plagiarism and the use of unauthorized materials, and immediately initiate a review of the identified online forums to assess the extent of the issue and potential collaboration with platform providers for content removal. Correct answer is D. Issue a public statement clarifying the exam's strict policy against plagiarism and the use of unauthorized materials, and immediately initiate a review of the identified online forums to assess the extent of the issue and potential collaboration with platform providers for content removal. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in the Albanian university entrance exam can lead students to seek shortcuts, making it crucial for educational institutions and exam administrators to have robust systems in place to prevent and detect academic misconduct. The challenge lies in balancing the need for a fair and rigorous assessment with the provision of adequate support and clear guidelines to students. The correct approach involves a comprehensive and proactive strategy that prioritizes prevention, detection, and fair adjudication. This includes clear communication of academic integrity policies, providing resources for proper study methods, and implementing technological and human oversight to identify potential breaches. The justification for this approach is rooted in the fundamental principles of fairness, equity, and the value of genuine academic achievement, as enshrined in the guidelines for the Albanian university entrance exam. Upholding these principles ensures that the exam serves its intended purpose of accurately assessing student knowledge and potential, and that all candidates are evaluated on a level playing field. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on punitive measures after an incident is ethically and regulatorily flawed. This reactive stance fails to address the root causes of academic dishonesty and can create an environment of distrust. It neglects the preventative aspect, which is a cornerstone of maintaining academic standards. Furthermore, a lack of clear, accessible information about what constitutes academic misconduct and the consequences thereof violates the principle of due process and fairness. Another incorrect approach that relies exclusively on automated detection without human review is also problematic. While technology can be a valuable tool, it is not infallible and can lead to false positives or negatives. A purely automated system risks unfairly penalizing students based on algorithmic errors or misinterpretations, thereby undermining the credibility of the exam process. The Albanian university entrance exam framework emphasizes a fair and thorough evaluation, which necessitates human judgment in interpreting evidence and making final decisions. A third incorrect approach that involves ignoring minor instances of perceived academic impropriety due to time constraints is a dereliction of duty. Every potential breach, regardless of perceived severity, must be investigated to maintain the integrity of the examination system. Overlooking such issues can set a dangerous precedent, encouraging further misconduct and devaluing the efforts of honest students. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a commitment to upholding the established rules and procedures, ensuring that all allegations are treated with due diligence and impartiality. The professional reasoning process should involve a systematic evaluation of the evidence, adherence to established protocols for investigation and reporting, and a commitment to fairness and transparency throughout the process. Question 14. Market research demonstrates that a significant number of high-achieving students in specific regions are unaware of the application deadlines and specific subject requirements for the Albanian university entrance exam. The university's admissions office is considering developing targeted outreach programs. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for university admissions in Albania? Option A. Create a fast-track application process for students identified through market research as having high potential, bypassing some of the standard information verification steps required by the Albanian university entrance exam regulations. Option B. Focus marketing efforts exclusively on regions where student performance on past entrance exams has been historically lower, offering financial incentives to enroll, without explicitly detailing the rigorous nature of the official Albanian university entrance exam. Option C. Develop and disseminate clear, factual information about application deadlines, subject requirements, and preparation resources through official university channels and partnerships with secondary schools, ensuring all information is consistent with the official examination guidelines. Option D. Launch a high-profile advertising campaign offering guaranteed admission to students who achieve a certain score on a preliminary internal assessment, regardless of their performance on the official Albanian university entrance exam. The correct answer is C. Develop and disseminate clear, factual information about application deadlines, subject requirements, and preparation resources through official university channels and partnerships with secondary schools, ensuring all information is consistent with the official examination guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial pressures of a university with the long-term ethical and regulatory obligations concerning the integrity of its admissions process. The university must ensure that its recruitment strategies are both effective in attracting students and compliant with the specific regulations governing university admissions in Albania. Misinterpreting or disregarding these regulations can lead to severe consequences, including reputational damage, loss of accreditation, and legal penalties. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and application of the Albanian university entrance exam regulations. This approach prioritizes compliance by ensuring that any market research findings are interpreted and acted upon in a manner that strictly adheres to the established legal and ethical framework for university admissions. Specifically, it means that recruitment strategies must not create any undue influence or unfair advantage that could compromise the fairness and objectivity of the entrance examination process, as mandated by Albanian educational law and university entrance regulations. The ethical imperative is to uphold the principle of equal opportunity for all prospective students. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on aggressive recruitment tactics without considering the regulatory framework fails to acknowledge the legal boundaries set by Albanian educational authorities. This can lead to practices that, while potentially increasing enrollment, may violate rules against misleading advertising or unfair recruitment, thereby undermining the integrity of the admissions process. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes short-term enrollment gains over long-term compliance risks, violating specific provisions within the Albanian university entrance exam regulations that govern how universities can engage with prospective students. This could involve offering incentives or making promises that are not permissible under the law, thereby creating an uneven playing field for applicants and potentially leading to challenges to the validity of admissions. A further incorrect approach that neglects the ethical implications of recruitment strategies, even if not explicitly violating a written regulation, can still lead to professional misconduct. This might involve exploiting vulnerabilities in the applicant pool or creating an environment where the focus shifts from academic merit to marketing effectiveness, which is ethically unsound and can damage the university's reputation and the trust placed in its admission system by students, parents, and the wider community. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a multi-step approach. First, a comprehensive review of all relevant Albanian educational laws and university entrance exam regulations. Second, an assessment of how market research findings can be implemented within these legal and ethical boundaries. Third, consultation with legal counsel or compliance officers if there is any ambiguity. And finally, the development and implementation of recruitment strategies that are both effective and demonstrably compliant with all applicable regulations and ethical standards. Question 15. Process analysis reveals that a candidate for the Albanian University entrance exam has submitted their application with a minor administrative error in the supplementary documentation, which is not explicitly addressed in the primary eligibility criteria, but is listed as a required component in the application guidelines. Considering the regulatory framework for the Albanian University entrance exam, which of the following actions best upholds the principles of fair and compliant admissions? Option A. Reject the candidate's application immediately due to the presence of any administrative error, regardless of its nature or impact, to strictly enforce all listed requirements without exception. Option B. Forward the application for review by the admissions committee without highlighting the administrative error, assuming it will be overlooked or deemed insignificant by the committee. Option C. Grant the candidate an interview and consider their application favorably based on the perceived strength of their academic background, even with the administrative discrepancy, prioritizing potential over strict procedural adherence. Option D. Proceed with the candidate's application by verifying all core academic and eligibility requirements, and if the minor error is easily correctable and does not impact the assessment of their qualifications, allow for its correction before final evaluation, in line with the spirit of procedural fairness as implied by the exam's overarching goals. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the candidate's application by verifying all core academic and eligibility requirements, and if the minor error is easily correctable and does not impact the assessment of their qualifications, allow for its correction before final evaluation, in line with the spirit of procedural fairness as implied by the exam's overarching goals. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in academic settings, ensuring the integrity of the admission process while adhering to specific university entrance exam regulations. The core professional challenge lies in balancing the need to identify genuinely qualified candidates with the imperative to prevent any form of unfair advantage or violation of established rules. This requires a nuanced understanding of the Albanian University entrance exam's regulatory framework, which prioritizes meritocracy and equal opportunity. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the candidate's submitted documentation against the explicit criteria outlined in the Albanian University entrance exam regulations. This includes verifying the authenticity of academic records, ensuring all required application components are present and correctly filled, and confirming that the candidate meets the eligibility requirements for the chosen program of study, as defined by the Ministry of Education and Sciences directives for university admissions. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant because it upholds the principles of fairness, transparency, and adherence to established legal and regulatory standards governing university admissions in Albania. It ensures that all candidates are evaluated on the same objective criteria, preventing any undue influence or preferential treatment. An incorrect approach would be to overlook minor discrepancies in the submitted documents, assuming they are inconsequential. This fails to adhere to the principle of strict compliance with regulations, which are designed to maintain the integrity of the examination process. Such leniency, even if well-intentioned, can create loopholes and set precedents that undermine the fairness of the admission system. Another incorrect approach would be to grant the candidate an interview or special consideration based on personal acquaintance or perceived potential, without a formal review of their eligibility, according to the exam regulations. This directly violates the principle of merit-based admissions and introduces subjective bias, which is contrary to the spirit and letter of the Albanian University entrance exam laws. It also creates an unfair advantage for the candidate in question and disadvantages other applicants who have strictly followed the established procedures. A further incorrect approach would be to dismiss the candidate's application solely based on a minor, easily correctable administrative error without providing an opportunity for clarification or correction, as long as the regulations allow for such recourse. While adherence to rules is crucial, an overly rigid interpretation that offers no room for procedural fairness, if permitted by the regulations, can be seen as unprofessional and contrary to the goal of admitting qualified students. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a systematic review of the candidate's application against the specific requirements of the Albanian University entrance exam regulations. If any ambiguities arise, the appropriate course of action is to consult the official guidelines or seek clarification from the relevant examination authorities. The ultimate decision must be grounded in objective adherence to the established rules, ensuring fairness and integrity throughout the admissions process. Question 16. Process analysis reveals that during the Albanian university entrance exam, an invigilator observes a candidate discreetly looking at notes concealed within their sleeve. The invigilator is aware that providing any form of assistance or allowing cheating to occur would violate the strict regulations governing the examination. What is the most appropriate and ethically mandated course of action for the invigilator in this situation? Option A. Discreetly approach the candidate, confiscate the notes, and inform them that they are disqualified from the examination. Option B. Verbally warn the candidate to stop looking at their sleeve and continue monitoring them. Option C. Ignore the observation to avoid causing a scene and potentially disrupting other candidates. Option D. Immediately report the observation to the chief invigilator or examination supervisor, providing a factual account of what was witnessed. The correct answer is A. Discreetly approach the candidate, confiscate the notes, and inform them that they are disqualified from the examination. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and ensure a fair assessment process for all candidates applying to Albanian universities. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to assist a struggling candidate with the absolute prohibition against providing unauthorized aid during an entrance examination. The examination's purpose is to objectively measure a candidate's acquired knowledge and aptitude, and any deviation from this principle undermines the credibility of the entire admission system. Careful judgment is required to identify and address potential breaches of examination rules without compromising the candidate's rights or the integrity of the assessment. The correct approach involves recognizing the situation as a potential violation of examination regulations and reporting it through the established official channels. This upholds the principle of fairness and ensures that the examination board can investigate and take appropriate action according to the established procedures. The regulatory framework for Albanian university entrance exams mandates strict adherence to examination rules and prohibits any form of cheating or unauthorized assistance. Reporting the incident to the invigilator or examination supervisor is the prescribed ethical and regulatory duty, as these individuals are empowered to handle such situations and initiate the necessary disciplinary procedures. This approach ensures that the examination process remains impartial and that all candidates are evaluated on their own merit. An incorrect approach would be to directly provide assistance to the candidate. This action constitutes a direct violation of examination rules, as it constitutes cheating and undermines the fairness of the assessment. Ethically, it is a breach of professional conduct for an invigilator or any examination official to aid a candidate, as it creates an unfair advantage and compromises the integrity of the examination. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the situation and pretend not to notice. This inaction is a failure to uphold the invigilator's responsibility to ensure the integrity of the examination. It allows a potential violation to go unaddressed, which is ethically problematic and can be considered a dereliction of duty. By not reporting, the invigilator implicitly condones the behavior, which erodes trust in the examination system. A third incorrect approach would be to confront the candidate directly and reprimand them without involving the official examination authorities. While the intention might be to stop the behavior, this bypasses the established protocol for handling examination irregularities. It can lead to an unprofessional escalation, potential disputes, and may not result in the appropriate formal investigation or disciplinary action as mandated by the regulations. The invigilator's role is to observe and report, not to act as judge and jury. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the examination regulations and one's role as an invigilator. When an irregularity is observed, the immediate step should be to discreetly document the observation and then report it to the designated authority, e.g., Chief Invigilator, Examination Supervisor, as per the established procedures. This ensures that the situation is handled impartially, consistently, and in accordance with the rules, thereby protecting the integrity of the examination and the fairness of the admission process. Question 17. Stakeholder feedback indicates that the current admission criteria for the Albanian university entrance exam may be overly stringent, potentially limiting access for a significant number of academically capable students. The university administration is considering ways to address this feedback while maintaining the integrity and fairness of the entrance process. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical principles governing university admissions in Albania? Option A. Publicly announce that the university will no longer strictly adhere to the published admission criteria for the upcoming academic year due to stakeholder concerns. Option B. Implement a new, unannounced set of admission criteria based on informal discussions with a few key stakeholders. Option C. Immediately lower the passing score for the entrance exam to accommodate the feedback and increase the number of admitted students. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the existing admission criteria, gather supporting data on student performance and national educational objectives, and propose any necessary adjustments through the formal institutional approval process. Correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the existing admission criteria, gather supporting data on student performance and national educational objectives, and propose any necessary adjustments through the formal institutional approval process. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate needs of students with the long-term integrity of the university's admission process and adherence to national educational standards. The pressure to admit a higher number of students, potentially driven by financial or reputational concerns, can conflict with the established criteria for academic suitability. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any adjustments to the admission process are fair, transparent, and compliant with the regulations governing university entrance exams in Albania. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the existing admission criteria and the feedback received, followed by a proposal for evidence-based adjustments that are submitted for approval through the established institutional channels. This approach upholds the principles of fairness and academic rigor by ensuring that any changes are well justified and aligned with the overarching goals of the Albanian university entrance exam framework. It respects the hierarchical structure of decision-making within the educational system, ensuring that modifications to examination standards are not made unilaterally, but through a consultative and approved process. This aligns with the spirit of national educational policy, which aims to standardize and elevate the quality of higher education admissions. An incorrect approach would be to unilaterally alter the scoring thresholds or admission criteria based on stakeholder pressure, without proper validation or institutional approval. This would violate the principle of transparency and fairness, potentially disadvantaging students who prepared based on the existing published criteria. It also undermines the authority of the examination board and the Ministry of Education, Science and Innovation, which are responsible for setting and overseeing these standards. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the feedback entirely, failing to acknowledge potential areas for improvement or adaptation within the existing framework. This demonstrates a lack of responsiveness and could lead to a perception of the university being out of touch with the needs of its stakeholders and the broader educational landscape. A third incorrect approach would be to implement changes that are not grounded in objective data or research, such as anecdotal evidence or unsubstantiated claims about student preparedness. This risks introducing bias and compromising the academic integrity of the admission process. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to regulatory guidelines, ethical considerations, and data-driven analysis. This involves 1. Understanding the specific regulations and guidelines for the Albanian university entrance exam. 2. Objectively assessing the stakeholder feedback to identify valid concerns. 3. Gathering evidence to support any proposed changes, such as comparative data on student performance or international best practices. 4. Consulting with relevant internal committees and external regulatory bodies. 5. Documenting all decisions and justifications thoroughly. 6. Communicating any approved changes clearly and in advance to all stakeholders. Question 18. System analysis indicates that a prospective student is seeking to understand the legal basis for their right to access higher education in Albania. Which of the following legal documents serves as the ultimate foundation for defining the rights and responsibilities of students and higher education institutions within the Albanian Republic? Option A. The internal statute of a particular university. Option B. General principles of European higher education harmonization guidelines. Option C. A specific ministerial decree on university admission procedures. Option D. The Albanian Constitution. The correct answer is D. The Albanian Constitution. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge for prospective university students in Albania by requiring them to understand the foundational principles of the Albanian legal framework as it pertains to university admissions. The core difficulty lies in identifying the primary legal instrument that governs the rights and obligations of students and educational institutions within the Albanian higher education system. A deep understanding of the Albanian constitution and relevant laws is crucial for navigating these rights. The correct approach involves recognizing that the Albanian constitution serves as the supreme law of the land, establishing fundamental rights and principles that underpin all other legislation, including those related to education. Therefore, any question regarding student rights and university responsibilities must be grounded in the constitutional framework. This approach is correct because the Constitution provides the overarching legal basis for educational access and quality, ensuring that all subsequent laws and regulations are consistent with these fundamental principles. An incorrect approach would be to focus solely on specific ministerial decrees or internal university regulations, without first considering the constitutional mandate. While these lower-level regulations provide operational details, they cannot supersede or contradict the fundamental rights and principles enshrined in the Constitution. Relying exclusively on such documents risks misinterpreting or violating constitutional guarantees. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that general principles of international educational law apply without specific reference to their incorporation into Albanian legislation, as domestic law takes precedence unless explicitly integrated. Professionals in educational administration and prospective students should employ a hierarchical legal reasoning process. This begins with identifying the highest applicable legal authority, the Constitution, then examining specific legislation enacted under its provisions, laws on higher education, followed by secondary legislation, ministerial decrees, and finally, institutional regulations. This ensures that all actions and interpretations are legally sound and ethically defensible within the Albanian context. Question 19. Quality control measures reveal that a student's submitted essay for the Albanian university entrance exam contains significant passages that are remarkably similar to content found in a widely available online academic resource, with no proper citation. The examination board is alerted to this potential plagiarism. What is the most appropriate course of action according to the regulatory framework governing the Albanian university entrance exam? Option A. Immediately disqualify the student from the examination and report them for academic misconduct based on the detected similarity. Option B. Advise the student to revise their essay to remove the similar passages and resubmit it, treating the initial submission as a draft. Option C. Initiate a formal investigation into the suspected plagiarism, gathering all evidence and allowing the student to provide an explanation before any disciplinary action is considered. Option D. Disregard the similarity, assuming it is a coincidence or common knowledge, and proceed with grading the essay as submitted. The correct answer is A. Immediately disqualify the student from the examination and report them for academic misconduct based on the detected similarity. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in the Albanian university entrance exam can lead to students seeking unfair advantages, making robust quality control measures crucial. Careful judgment is required to identify and address potential breaches of academic honesty without unfairly penalizing students. The correct approach involves a thorough, evidence-based investigation that respects the student's rights while adhering strictly to the regulations of the Albanian university entrance exam. This means gathering all relevant information, consulting the official examination guidelines for procedures on suspected academic misconduct, and ensuring a fair hearing process. The regulatory framework for the Albanian university entrance exam mandates that all accusations of cheating must be substantiated by concrete proof, and that students have the right to respond to such accusations. A fair process ensures that decisions are based on facts and established rules, thereby maintaining the credibility of the examination. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the student based on suspicion alone. This fails to uphold the principle of innocent until proven guilty and violates the procedural fairness guaranteed by the exam regulations. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the evidence of potential misconduct due to time constraints or a desire to avoid conflict. This abdication of responsibility undermines the integrity of the examination process and creates an uneven playing field for honest students. Furthermore, an approach that involves sharing unverified accusations with other students or faculty before a formal investigation constitutes a breach of confidentiality and can cause irreparable damage to the student's reputation, violating ethical standards and potentially specific privacy regulations within the Albanian educational system. Professionals in this situation should employ a structured decision-making process. This begins with recognizing the potential issue and immediately consulting the official regulations of the Albanian university entrance exam regarding academic integrity and misconduct procedures. Next, all available evidence should be meticulously collected and documented. A formal, impartial investigation should then be initiated, ensuring the student is informed of the allegations and given an opportunity to present their case. Decisions should be made solely on the basis of the evidence gathered and in strict accordance with the established rules and guidelines of the Albanian university entrance exam. Question 20. Process analysis reveals that a student participating in the Albanian university entrance exam has been accused of possessing unauthorized study materials during the examination period. The examination committee is considering how to address this allegation. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework for university entrance exams in Albania? Option A. Issue a warning to the student and allow them to continue the exam, assuming the materials were not used during the examination itself. Option B. Conduct a formal investigation into the allegation, gathering evidence and allowing the student to present their defense before making a decision based on the established examination regulations. Option C. Immediately disqualify the student from the exam and ban them from future entrance exams without further inquiry. Option D. Report the allegation to the student's school, but take no immediate action regarding their current exam participation. Correct answer is C. Immediately disqualify the student from the exam and ban them from future entrance exams without further inquiry. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well on the Albanian university entrance exam can lead students to seek shortcuts, making it crucial for educational institutions and examination bodies to establish clear guidelines and consequences. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate academic support and academic misconduct. The correct approach involves a thorough investigation of the alleged misconduct, adhering strictly to the established procedures outlined by the Albanian Ministry of Education and the specific regulations governing the university entrance exam. This includes gathering evidence, providing the student with an opportunity to respond, and making a decision based on the evidence and the defined rules. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant as it upholds the principles of fairness, due process, and academic integrity, ensuring that the exam's validity is maintained. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the student based solely on suspicion without a proper investigation. This fails to provide the student with their right to a fair hearing and could lead to an unjust outcome, violating principles of natural justice. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the allegations, which undermines the integrity of the examination process and sets a precedent for future misconduct. Finally, imposing a penalty without considering the student's explanation or the severity of the alleged infraction would be arbitrary and unfair, failing to adhere to established disciplinary procedures. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes evidence-based assessment, adherence to established protocols, and fairness to all parties involved. This involves understanding the relevant regulations, meticulously documenting all steps of the investigation, and ensuring that any disciplinary action is proportionate to the proven offense.